also like the scene where he's doing the charcoal sketch of her in James Cameron's hand, by the way. That's another little fun fact that I think everybody knows by now, that it was actually James Cameron doing the charcoal drawing of Rose and not Leonardo DiCaprio's hand. But the line, she goes, "You're blushing. I can't imagine Monsieur Monet blushing." It does landscapes. I mean, that scene's classic.
I agree with that, and I wrote down as a favorite or as a high for me was PG-13 tits. Enough said. But I also thought it was interesting. This I think is an interesting little bit of hypocrisy with the MPAA, because the MPAA is so very famously prude when it comes to nudity. When it comes to nudity, you go to Europe and nudity is not
the
normal.
human body isn't stigmatized.
It's not stigmatized. It's not. And it's funny because you can watch PG-13 movies in America that are very, very violent.
The reason the MPAA went along with it is because it was done in the same reason it was okay for schools to take their classes to see this movie. She's laying for a portrait. A lot of artists at the time, Impressionists, Neo-Impressionists, Pablo Picasso too, abstract artists. I mean, a lot of artists at the time and before that, for hundreds of years before that, would do nude portraits. And it wasn't necessarily meant to be sexual. It's the human body. It's more scientific than anything.
I think that the fact that this movie was made for $200 million.
It wasn't like her top was off the whole time or something. It was just that scene. And then the only other time you see boobs is when you look at the charcoal drawing. The only time you really see her boobs is when she's laying back on the couch. It's not like every other scene her tits are hanging out or something.
I'm saying during the scene where she sits to be drawn like one of his French girls, you see her tits quite a bit. And I'm not complaining, and I'm not even saying that it's offensive. What I'm saying is that the MPAA under normal circumstances, the MPAA would rate this a rated R movie. Just because of that. Just because they would make them cut that.
It was actually not 100%. Well, it really wasn't. It can be perceived that it's not sexual. Even though it is supposed to be.
Whatever you want to say about that,
they weren't having sex. Her boobs are moving, or her boobs are. I mean, he did touch her. Put your hands on me, Jack. The scene in the car not long after. But you can't see her boobs then. It'd be different. That's the line that you'd be crossing with the MPAA.
If this movie wasn't made for $200 million and wasn't distributed by Paramount Pictures and 20th Century Fox, I don't think they would have been able to keep those boobs in that movie at a PG-13 rating. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not even complaining.
I think that the loophole, okay, we know that. I think that the loophole that they managed to get through was that it's a historical / artistic context in which her boobs are being displayed. It's not in a sex scene, which is what the MPAA does not want. They don't want, you can say shit, but you can't say I took a shit, right? You can say you're a stupid fuck, but you can't say I want to fuck you, right? It's that contrast. It can't be in a sexual level, and it was sexual, but it wasn't like in your face.
And that level of monkeying, is the part where it turns the MPAA into a censorship group and not into this grading system that they're trying to pretend that they are. I'm sorry. And again, I'm not.
I can't take that away. But I'm telling you, that's why they let that slide.
Fine. All I'm saying is that it seems funny that you put boobs in other movies and they get rated R, and you put boobs in James Cameron's Titanic and it's PG-13. And again, not complaining, but just pointing it out as like, this is very clear. When you want, this is a movie that you could bring field trips to go see this movie.
Children are allowed to go into the MFA, right? There's portraits in that museum that have half naked or even maybe completely naked people, sculptures of naked people, and school-age children are allowed to go in there because it's not people having sex, it's not a striptease, it's art.
Okay,
it's the human form through a means of an art form of artistic expression, whether it be sculpting or painting. And of course, and will always be to the end of time, you're gonna have plenty of kids that are immature about it. Boobs. Yeah, it's hilarious. It's not. They're not taking it in like an adult. And I guess why would you expect them to? You can't expect them to be more mature than they are. But it's not meant to be sexual. So because of that, it's perceived as okay.
I just find it to be a slight hypocrisy in the MPAA where, and again, I'm not saying that nudity should be something that is censored. I'm saying that it's funny where they're willing to make the exception. That's the only thing I'm trying to note, is that I feel like if this was another movie that was made for $100,000 that showed a woman in the context that was not sexualized, that was more about showing a person's form in a way that was meant to be artistic, I think they'd have less leniency.
Or just in a natural state of being.
I think they'd have less leniency than what they have when you spend $200 million and you have major distributors. And they say, we have to get this to the most amount of people. Because if Titanic was rated R and not rated PG-13, it would not have made $1 billion.
Right.
It would have made less than half of that.
Right.
Because of the rating.
I understand.
That's all I'm trying to say.